Hello and welcome everyone to this month's Mentor Magazine. And this month we're featuring March Monologue Madness. Just in time for St. Patrick's Day, of course. But of course, we're not going to rely on luck to get what we want. We're going to use the acting science method. And so we're going to jump into this month's lesson all about monologues. Now, first of all, I just want to say that so many times I hear monologues talked about in association with theater. And yes, of course, monologues are used often in the theater genre. But I have seen a definite trend towards monologues being used much more often now in the film industry. And so that's what prompted this special subject for this month's Mentor magazine. There are modern reasons to have good monologues, good monologues at the ready, even as a film and television actor. All right, so let's jump into this month's lesson. So let's talk about some of those modern reasons that you might need a monologue for film and television. So, first of all, personal branding and identity. One of the things that I really like to focus on in my Science of Branding course is that your unique selling point should be the types of roles that you want to play. Now, this doesn't mean doctor, lawyer, yada, yada, yada. It means the essence of that role. And what we want to do throughout your career is show the essence of that role, that dream role that you want in all of your materials, in all of your branding. So when it comes to picking a monologue, you don't want to be willy-nilly about this. You want to be able to pick a monologue that really identifies the type of role that you want in the future. So then you can feature it in various different places. Obviously, you can put it up on the casting platforms along with a polished production actor reel or show reel if you're in a different country. Um, so that's something that we can use. You can put it on your website, you can upload it to YouTube, put it in your email signature, et cetera, et cetera. So it becomes that stamp of, hey, this is what I'm capable of when I'm memorized, when I'm prepared, and when I've had time to fine tune something. And this is exactly the type of role that I want to play. So that's number one. Number two, it can sure help you get an agent. Now, if you have a demo reel already, great. But maybe the role that you really want to play is not featured in that demo reel yet. So if you feel like your demo reel isn't everything that you want to show an agent, then having an additional well-filmed monologue for the type of role that you want to be marketed for would really go a long way. And of course, if you don't have that, if you don't have the actor reel or the show reel, then having this well-filmed monologue might just be the ticket that you need for getting not only an agent or a manager, but even potentially adding to your reps list. Okay, number three. It's a way to put your training to work and share it. I talked about putting it in your email signature. You can make it a pin on Instagram. You can put it in TikTok. You can use this the same way that you use your headshot, except that it's dynamic. It's something that is living and breathing and comes to life. So perhaps you would feature your headshot on maybe your actor's website, for example, and then having this coming alive from that. One of the cool things I think would be neat to do is, if you can, if it works for you, wear the same outfit that you wore in your theatrical film and television headshot, and then wear that in the filming of your monologue. Now, when I say the filming of your monologue, yes, I am talking about not just filming it as a self-tape audition, but actually filming it in an environment that makes sense. An office environment, a doctor's office, outside in the woods. Um, you can, there's nothing, there's no rule against doing it as a self-tape audition. Maybe you do both, okay? But if you have the capability, especially if you have access to filmmakers, or maybe you are a filmmaker, then why not bring that monologue to life? All right. So put your training, your acting science method training to work and share that. Get that work out there. Don't let it just sit in your mind or sit on your desktop. Get that information, get that work out there. But absolutely critical and key to that is that it is your best work. All right, number 4 is non-traditional casting situations. So non-traditional casting situations might include when you're auditioning, say, for a very popular television show where they just can't risk that the storyline might get out. Now, I know we all sign those NDAs, but that does not stop people, I assure you. And sometimes people just share those scripts by accident. Maybe somebody else looks on their computer, etc., etc. So, in those situations, often they'll use an old script if possible, but sometimes it's not possible. Sometimes the character is new, sometimes the character is not at all like any other character from that show. And in which case, you being able to submit a monologue would be great. I also see this a lot in indie filmmakers will say, submit these sides and a 1 minute monologue, or just a 1 minute monologue. Maybe they don't have the sides pulled, and maybe they don't even know to pull sides. So, indie film is definitely a place where you could benefit from having these monologues as well. Not to mention showcases. Those are wonderful opportunities when you're in front of industry professionals, or just in times when someone says to you, "So, what do you do?" or "What can you do?" So, if you're ever in that situation, then you would have something ready to go. And that is absolutely vital. So, those are some modern reasons why film actors should have monologues. Now, I've got a whole resource guide for you this month on how to pick a monologue, and I think there are plenty of good monologues out there. But I want to talk about what you do if the role that you want to play you can't find. Maybe it's really unique. Maybe something that you really feel compelled to do. So, I want to take a moment now to talk about creating your own standout monologue, just in case you can't find something that is compelling enough that really fits that, ticks all those boxes. And we'll go through that here in just a little bit. But why originality matters? Well, you definitely want to surprise and create intrigue for casting or for filmmakers. And a lot of times actors fall into the trap of doing, the famous scene from A Few Good Men or the Take My Baby from Sophie's Choice. And those are epic, epic, epic scenes in a movie. Wonderful monologues maybe the first time around, but two problems with that. They've been done to death, and two, they're associated with a famous actor's pivotal moment on screen. So that's going to be a tough act to follow. And you don't want to follow that. You want to be you. You don't want to be, oh, I'm going to be like Julia Roberts. I'm going to be like Tom Hanks. I'm going to be like Meryl Streep, et cetera, et cetera. You want to be you. Okay. So having an original piece can really help you out with that. Maybe you just want to showcase your own qualities. You want to bring you, your body language, your finesse, your uniqueness to the screen, and you just don't feel like that's captured anywhere else. Creating your own monologue might be cool. And you want to stand out. So you really just want that original piece. something not everyone else is going to have. I've even had situations where I saw like somebody bring the same, two people bring the same piece to a showcase event, and it was just a little bit awkward. It's kind of like we're in the same outfit to a party, two people were in the same outfit. That, it's just a little bit awkward. But I think what's really fun and kind of going beyond what I talked about in the magazine is writing your own monologue allows you to take those creative ideas that you've thought up and bring them to life. Maybe it's a true story from your own life. Maybe it's just a really unique creative idea that you didn't want to write a whole screenplay about, but you would love to see that concept come to life on screen. Well, who better to do that than you? So, I encourage you that if you cannot find the perfect monologue, then feel free to write a great monologue yourself. I definitely would recommend that you utilize our secret chat group and other Acting Science CMFA members to brainstorm with and see what you can come up with together. So definitely do that. So we're going to now switch gears a little bit. We're going to go to this month's resource, which is the monologue selection checklist. And so in this, I'm going to go through each one and talk about what each one means and help you decode this a little bit. But this will be your handy guide for picking and selecting that incredible monologue that's going to showcase your skills. All right, so the first one on this pick your monologue checklist is the monologue matches the type of roles you want to get cast for. Again, it goes back to branding. Maybe you can't find a monologue that fits you. Maybe you create it, but however you do it, you want to make sure that you are picking something that represents the kind of roles that you want to play. So unless you're intending to do, Hallmark romantic movies, that's maybe not the monologue that you want to pick. Number two, the monologue naturally builds a story. It isn't just a random bunch of lines. I think sometimes people see a chunk of dialogue in a screenplay and they're like, oh, look, it's a monologue. But it's not a monologue if it doesn't tell a story and add a context to everything else that maybe was in that scene. It might not tell a story. So it's important that the dialogue that you select has the ability to show that story build, so that it isn't all one level. And on that note, number three, the monologue gives an opportunity for vocal variety. So there are reasons in it, maybe to adjust your tone, to show different emotion through your voice, to be perhaps casual and conversational. Maybe there is an emotional arc in the story, but it gives you an opportunity to have believable vocal um, quality, but also to have that variety as well. One of the biggest problems I see with a lot of monologues is they simply become like this kind of sing-songy, poetry sounding, um, you know, and that is not going to get you what you want. It's got to feel sort of effortless and grounded. And you want to pick something that allows for that. The monologue gives an opportunity for creative use of body language and visual richness. So this just means that there is a sense of physicality in this story, or it would allow for it. I saw this really beautiful monologue. It was about a man in a wheelchair that could only uh, communicate through words, but he couldn't move. And although it was really compelling, it didn't allow for physical variety. And while I appreciated the piece and the story that it was telling, it might not be the best match for you. So, for example, if you want to do a lot of action roles, then a role that would restrain your physicality would probably go against what your long term branding goals are. So, in general, you just want something that's going to give you the ability to move around. I mean, I think another example, less extreme, would be a car scene because you can't really move much in a car scene. So, I would avoid things like that. The next one, the monologue gives an opportunity for emotional variety and naturally builds. So it isn't just one level that we're creating some emotional nuance. In the acting science method, I call this emotional fluency. It's understanding you as an actor, understanding what emotions you have, what those feel like to you, and how you show those emotions in your speech, but also in your body language. And that is something that we go through in a lot of detail, of course, in my emotional fluency class. But if a piece is very one level, like I think the scene that I joked about, the scene, you can't handle the truth. I mean, it's all very one level. He's mad. And yes, you can find some nuance in there, but we get the levels in that story from the rest of the story. That actual scene, in terms of a monologue, isn't giving us a lot of range. And I think there's a lot of popular monologues out there that are one note. And even if that note is great, even if you have this really beautiful anger moment, it's still one emotion, one note. So I'd encourage you to try to find a monologue that allows you to show, well, the believability of nuanced emotion. And then, like I said before, an opportunity for that to build in the story. I think another thing that is important is that the monologue gives you an opportunity for a strong character choice. And this goes back to your branding and what you want, what kind of roles you want to play. So, I hear actors often say, "Well, I could do that, I could do that, oh, I could do that, I could do that and that." You know, it's if you're the actor who can play anything and everything, you haven't defined yourself yet. And your true success in your career is going to come from those defining roles. So look for something that is a defining role in the way that you want your career to advance. I think this is also important. The monologue speaks to you personally and you connect with the material emotionally. So, if it's something that you can't identify with, that you don't have any context to, you know, maybe it's a military piece, you've never been in the military, and you just can't quite feel it on a personal level, that might not be your best monologue. Now, of course, I don't recommend you using your own personal recall memories like other methods do. We have an entirely different and more science-based approach here at the acting science method. But still, I think just on an intellectual level, if you're not vibing with it, for a lack of a scientific word, you're not vibing with it, then it's probably not the best monologue. Not for you, anyway. The monologue is not overly controversial or offensive. While there may be a place for these types of pieces in the world of art and filmmaking, remember what we're using the monologue for. So if you are going to offend one person, alienate one person, well, you don't want that to be the one person that could potentially give you a career changing role. So I highly recommend that monologues are not controversial or offensive in any way. That means toning down cuss words. I mean, we all cuss. Pretty much everyone cusses, okay? Um, but there's something about hearing it in a polished piece that might just set them back a little bit. I'm actually surprised how conservative agents, managers, filmmakers become when they start watching monologues. It's a strange phenomenon. I'm not sure I can even explain it. I'm just going to tell you that it exists, and let's not give them a reason not to select you. You have control over this material. This is something that can be your masterpiece, if you will. And there's no point tempting fate. There's a lot of other ways that things can go wrong. This doesn't need to be part of it. The monologue should be 1 to 2 minutes in length, and if done right, your monologue is going to grow, because the best acting, this is one of my most common quotes, the best acting is done in silence. It's not what you say, it's what your body is saying that is going to communicate much, much more than anything that you could actually say. So if your monologue is 1 minute, it's probably going to grow as you start working on it. So aim for something 1 to 2 minutes. We definitely don't want to go over that for most practical purposes. And then this kind of goes back to the originality thing, and that is this monologue should not be overused or too famous. So if it's associated with somebody who is very, very famous, and this was a standout role for them, standout moment for them, and maybe they got an Oscar for it, don't, just leave it alone. That's my recommendation. And just any piece that's been overused. So a lot of times these monologue books, they're not very good, or they're drawing on material that has been done to death. All right. Or they're designed for theater. Like I said, there's modern reasons why we need these for film and television, but there's a lot of theater monologue books out there. This is not going to work for you. Um, this is not going to work for you. Film and television shouldn't be Shakespeare. All right. Um, so let's just stop there with the slide presentation. And I'm just going to bring up a couple other notes for you before we wrap up this lesson. All right, so we went over that checklist, and I just want to remind you how important it is to print these out and save them. I actually know some people that print out the whole magazine. You don't have to do that, save a tree. But some of the things that you might need on the fly, or you want to put in your acting science notebook, well, print it out. You've got it there. Here are some next steps that you might want to take. First of all, use this guide to select a monologue or write one of your own. Number two, work on your monologue in our next private session. So if you are a monthly mentor student, if you're part of that club, whether you are in the master's club or the weekly mentor session, you have that one-on-one time with me. And I've already started working with some of you on some killer monologues. So that's super exciting. So that's something you can do. Or you can sign up for my monologues workshop. So I have two. I have the dramatic monologues workshop, and then I also have the comedy monologues workshop. So ideally, I think a good combination all around would be a dramatic monologue, a comedy monologue, if that's something that you see yourself doing, comedy, and an original monologue might tick all those boxes as well. So that's what I recommend that you have in your toolkit. So thank you everyone for joining me for this lesson. Make sure you post and comment in the chat group, and I would love to hear from you. What did you enjoy most about this lesson? And if you have suggestions for lessons coming up, let me know. I am all ears. Thank you, and I will see you next month.